And she said, well, I really can't help you. If you had these things and had gone to therapy and all of that kind of stuff. And very flippantly, I said, well, shame on me for being resilient. And she just said, oh, well, Heather, some of these stories are just tragic. And I said, you know what? I am not taking away from them.
Right.
But what can I do? What can my experience bring to others? And how can I share this with other people to be able to serve them, share with them, and to help them sustain themselves?
Welcome to another episode of Relentlessly Resilient, presented by Minky Couture, a weekly podcast where people share real-life experiences and the tools they've developed to move forward and live their best lives. I'm Michelle Scharf.
And I'm Jennie Taylor, and we are so grateful to our sponsor, Minky Couture, for the beautiful blankets they create that are perfect for every occasion. It's not only for those cold nights, think weddings, baby showers, graduations, any kind of occasion. Maybe someone you know is buying a home this summer and you can have a great housewarming gift. Minky Couture, you can find them in 6 Utah locations or at minkycouture.com. Today is going to be a great day. I can already tell. We've been in the studio for a few minutes with our guest today, and we're already laughing and just getting along great. Heather Higgins, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, we were just having such great conversation before we hit record that we had to say, stop, let's hit record and get going. Tell us a little bit about you.
So I'm born and raised in Utah. I was raised with my parents' business, so I grew up in a business atmosphere, always watching them cycle through the ebb and flow of business success and not so successful times.
Yeah, the entrepreneur way.
Right, exactly. And then had the opportunity after I came home from my mission to go to work for a steel manufacturer fabrication company and eventually went on to buy that business.
How long after did you buy this company?
About 6 years.
Okay, that's impressive because now you're still 20-something.
Yeah, 20. And yes, I was 28 when
you're
I bought
a 20-something-year-old woman in a
in a very steel-dominated, in a very male-dominated industry. Yeah, exactly.
Especially, it's still male-dominated today, but we're talking a while ago.
Yeah,
a minute or two ago.
There was one woman that was the general manager of a steel distributor, and that was the only other woman I knew that was in that
Okay, so clearly
arena.
Your parents' entrepreneurial spirit were rubbed off on you.
Well, you have
no?
to. Yeah, yes, it did. When I was 5, what I did when I was 5 was go over to the Jordan River Canal and fish out pollywogs, and then I would sell them to the neighborhood kids for 1 penny if they had 1 foot out and had started to transition to the frog, or up to 4 pennies.
Depending on how many legs.
Yes,
Stop.
exactly.
You were such a brilliant kindergartner.
I know, it was fun. And then I decided that I needed to teach the kids how to do it because it was way too much fun. So my life, I don't know that I necessarily knew this until more recently, but serve, share, and sustain has become kind of that mantra for me.
Say that again.
It's serve, share, and sustain.
Beautiful. Another T-shirt, Michelle. Another T-shirt.
There you go.
We really do need to get some merch going.
We could have so many shirts. I would never have to worry about what to wear today.
And then credit the episode on them.
There you go.
Heather
nice
Higgins.
Advertising.
I know. We need to do that.
Share, sustain.
Yeah. So then, yay me.
You.
In about 6 years after buying the business and owning it and operating it very successly, up to $10+ million a year.
Whoa. She says so casually.
We had to close the business, and that was my first adventure into really having to choose to do something that was hard, right? Not just those things that happen to you.
Facing the hard
I had to make the decision, to shut her down.
So tell us a little about that.
Not such a shiny spot, right? Lots of tears, lots of angst and energy, lots of anxiety attacks, and so we'd been in that building for 30 years, and we had to clean it out and sell the building. 2 of my very dear friends, a dear friend and my sister, came to serve me every single day, helping me clean all the corners of guck and yuck that you can imagine in 30 years of oil and grease and dust and machine scrap and all of that. And I had a friend call me and say, hey, when you get settled, come see me, I have a job for you. And I'm like, okay, that's great. I'd love to come. So I was able to go to work for a steel distributor, a local steel distributor, served as their inside sales person, then was promoted to safety and quality, and then eventually to their inside sales manager. Loved it, had a great time, built a great team, an awesome team of very unique and different individuals who in and of themselves had to learn lots of skill sets together as we changed how we were doing what we were doing in the course of our sales, really our sales direction. We went from choosing to sell more pounds and at a lower price to moving it up to a value add situation. And some of them didn't love that. They didn't adapt to that well. But eventually we got on the same page and really had some tremendous success, which was awesome. And went forward really having, like I said, some great successes and built some great relationships with customers. And then on a day off, I received a telephone call telling me that I was no longer going to be employed by this company. So dumped on my butt.
Oh, my word.
And that sent me into a little bit of a tailspin, somewhat similar to choosing, right? To choosing to let go of the business, but in a different way.
Well, there's a couple big parts of that. Like,
right.
One, nobody likes to be rejected. And when you're fired, you feel very rejected.
Well, and how many people do you know that get fired over the phone?
Right.
I mean, no, absolutely no class.
It's not like you were entry level
no,
and they're just
exactly
saying, hey, don't come back to work tomorrow.
Right.
You've built and run a successful team and probably lots of dollars of value add to that company.
Mm-hmm. I felt like that, right? I felt like we were on the same page and we were moving forward in that direction. And at some point, your friends and everyone says, you know, you were treated super poorly. You need to figure something out. They used a lot of words that I don't necessarily think we can use on radio.
Yeah.
Thanks for keeping it clean for the kids.
Yeah, you know, me and PG, we're best friends. So
I'm going to put that on a T-shirt for my son.
I contacted a attorney, actually, and I said, can you just help me process through this? Tell me what you think. So I explained the situation and kind of all the things that happened. And she just said to me, you know what? People can fire people because they don't like them. Not just because Utah is an at-will state, but they don't really have to have a reason. And you just got caught up in the middle of that. Now, have you had therapy? Have you had to go to the doctor? What kind of things and what kind of ill effects has this happened? And what medications are you on? And I said, well, nothing. I'm just working through it. I started my own business. I'm processing what I want to do with it. I know I want to do some coaching and consulting. I have a huge background in manufacturing. I just don't know exactly what I'm doing with it. And she said, well, you know, I really can't help you. You know, if you had these things and had gone to therapy and all of that kind of stuff. And very flippantly, and much to my learning more later, I said, well, shame on me for being resilient. And she just said, oh, well, Heather, some of these stories are just tragic. And I said, you know what? I am not taking away from them.
Right.
But I just really have to sit with this. I really have to look at my own self and say, A, where did the resilience come from? Why is it so ingrained in my system that I'm prepared to just step over this and move on? And why are there others that struggle so hard? And what can I do? What can my experience bring to others? And how can I share this with other people to be able to serve them, share with them, and to help them sustain themselves? So that is where Novel Expressions came to find a stronger course for itself. It was already in existence, but then at that point I was like, okay, I'm in this and I'm in it to win it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
I love that energy and conviction.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
So tell me a little bit about Novel Expressions.
So Novel Expressions is one of those things that came about while talking to a customer that I used to work with on the phone and said, what are you going to do now that you're not selling steel? And I said, well, and it just rolled off my tongue like I knew what I was doing and knew what I was talking about, which is usually a sign that it's coming from a divine resource, right?
For sure.
Right.
And so I was like, well, I'm going to go into business where I'm going to consult business owners because I want them to learn from the experiences that I had. And I want to do some coaching. And I think that customer service is rooted in training and we don't train people well. And all of this stuff just came flying out my mouth like I knew what I was talking about.
Like, here's your business plan.
Yeah.
I
My
hope
whole
somebody
business
was
model.
recording the phone call.
Well, I didn't, but I was writing myself notes.
Isn't that so funny? Oh,
and
my gosh.
And then he said, well, I need you. Come down.
So
let's
first
talk.
customer in the exact moment you made up the company concept.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
And it was awesome. And that
Heather
was,
Higgins.
There you go. So novel expressions, I chose novel because I love the word. I love words. Words are super important to me. And I love novel being something that is unique and different.
Right.
And then expressions, because certainly the idea of being able to express yourself and be able to find your unique voice in whatever business or you as a leader or whether it's an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, or even just someone who wants to better themselves and find that path, they need to find that expression for themselves. So that's where novel expressions came from.
Okay, so that's beautiful. And clearly you have a lot of resilience. You alluded to it a second ago that you almost had a reflective moment of where did I get resilience? How have I developed this? Tell us what resilience means to you and what it looks like to you.
So for me, it's a journey. It's personal growth. It's reinvention. It's looking at the challenges and the struggles and the traumas that come to you and finding out how you cultivate and how you learn from those and what you get from them. A number of years, I would say probably 3 or 4 years into the first business, I bought a piece of stainless steel. And while some of your listeners might know what that is, it's expensive metal. It's sold in pounds, dollars by the pound, not by the 100 pounds. So it's super spendy. And I ordered a 36-inch piece of steel rolled tube that was 20 foot long, 20 or 25 foot long. Can't remember exactly.
Like a big long pole.
Yeah.
A tube.
A
tube.
Like
okay,
a straw.
Okay, yeah.
A big straw.
Okay. A big straw.
Yeah, a big straw. It was supposed to be 3'6", not 36 inches.
Oh.
So I couldn't cut it. I couldn't use it for anything. It wasn't unrelatable. So I had this big hunk of steel sitting out there that was absolutely useless. And every time scrap season came around or every time somebody, you want to sell? No, I don't want to sell it. I want to walk out there and I want to look at that. And I want to recognize people make mistakes every day. People are going to make mistakes in my business and if in their lives and in our adventure. And I need to remind myself that this is human. This is who we are. So what that born for me in my business was I know what it cost me. What did I buy with it?
Mm-hmm. Whoa, that's really good. That's really good.
I love that analogy on multiple levels.
Right.
Number one, you purchased this thing that was unusable. So it literally served no purpose. There's nothing you can do with it. But you created a purpose because you let it serve you in the way of teaching you a lesson. I made a mistake. I'm human. I'm fallible. Things happen. And what am I going to choose?
So when that guy walked up to me and he had turned this piece of material that we paid $3,400 for and it was now crap, I just had to think about it. And that little shiny piece of that shiny straw out in my backyard reminded me, this is human. Okay, well, what did you do? Can you tell where you went in the process? Can you tell where it went wrong? Did you misread an inch versus
What did you buy with it?
Right. What did you buy with it?
What did you buy with it?
What did
Do
we
you
get?
still
What did we
have
get
the
to take
shiny
away?
straw?
No, because I sold.
Okay.
I had to shut the business down.
Oh, and it went with the business.
And it did. Well, part of it was still left actually,
about a
but we
picture?
had been
How about a
able
picture of
over
the shiny
30
straw?
years. We had been able to hack away at some of that and use some of it somewhere. So it did serve multiple purposes. But Michelle, thank you for recognizing that because for me, it changed that, right? It changed how I
paradigm
led.
shift.
It changed how I
That just
taught
adds
to
another
people.
layer
I
to
love
it,
that.
right? Because the
I love it
next
so
layer
much.
is you may not see the purpose now, but eventually there may
Hold
come
on,
a
there
time
can be
that this really teaches you something or
Right.
that you're able to use this in a significant way. There's just so many layers to this analogy of this hunk of metal that's sat in
this
your backyard
giant
for 30
straw.
years.
Yeah, and so you know why I held on to it. And
Yeah.
some of us that
get
is
it.
inside us, right? And those are the lessons and the things that happen to us. That's the baggage that people talk about, right? That we carry around. Well, I didn't have to drag mine around. It was sitting there, but I still had to process through what to do with it and still recognize the lesson that I could get from it and how that could help me learn and grow. So for me, that process is all about self-awareness and what we do with what we get. And sometimes we get things that we don't love, and sometimes we get things that are really awesome. But what we do with them, that's the difference.
That's what really matters, right?
Right.
I love that so much.
Yeah. I love that. Resilience is all about that mindset. It's all about being able to accept the things that are. You made a mistake. you just call it what it is. I think where people get hung up and the parts that make people maybe a little less resilient is when they make a mistake, but they don't just say, I made a mistake. That's accountability.
Mm-hmm.
But instead they're like, I am X, Y, or Z because I made this mistake, right?
They become the mistake.
Right. They become the mistake and they identify and hang on to it as literal baggage. And then they're picking up their guilt, their shame, they're not enough, they're whatever. And they're adding more baggage.
Heavier and heavier and heavier.
And it was just a mistake. It was just a hunk of metal that they could have just left out in the yard.
Right. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think that's the foundation, I think, for what I'm doing with Novel Expressions now. And so I pivoted from maybe doing full-time consulting to now where I'm taking some of those lessons that I've learned and trying to create more meaningful single opportunities with women in retreat settings or workshop settings or things like that.
Okay, I definitely want to learn more about this. Walk us through. What does it look like? What do you offer? Where is it? Everything.
So thank you.
Comes?
I appreciate that. Well, who comes is not enough people, so hopefully this will spark a little interest too. So
we want
thank
you all to consider yourselves invited. To all of our listeners, you are all invited. Tell us about it, and then tell us how
NovelExpressions.org.
Okay, that's where we find it. Okay.
Novel
Expressions.
NovelExpressions.org.
And if I come, where will I go and what will I do?
So I've had two so far. I had one in February, and then the other one is coming up this weekend, actually.
Okay, so it's April while we're recording.
Yes, April. So what it is designed around a holistic care for the individual that's coming, the woman that's coming, because they are women's retreats at this moment. We have talked about doing a couples retreat, but right now we're focusing on this. And they're women in business. So at the first retreat, we talked about creating your brand message. How do you align your message with your audience so that you draw the right people to you? What can you learn to understand about your personality more so that you can lead people and direct people and use your skill sets and pull their skill sets into that? We can't be everything to everyone. We need to find the right people to support us.
Which is just too bad. Can I just comment right now that it's too bad we can't be everything to everyone? Because I think that's what women would like to do by nature. Don't we want to be everything to everyone?
We do.
And then we trip ourselves because we get discouraged that we can't be everything to everyone. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Well, and one of my favorite things is growing up in Utah, we hear people worry about fluoride in the water and all of that kind of stuff. Well, I think what we really should be worrying about is fine in our water. It is a disease. It is a mental statement that we make and a conversation blocker, right?
I'm fine.
How are you doing today?
I'm fine.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. Yeah. No, you're not. You got stuff going on.
Right.
And at some point it becomes...
Fine in the water. I love that.
It becomes a habit. It becomes a fixation. And at our very worst, it becomes an enslavement that we do not go look at those things. And we become, like you're talking about, we become that that mistake we've made. And then we block that up and we block that up, and then it becomes who we are. And then so everybody, we don't want to let anybody look at that because we're so full of all of that we just want to be fine and push away all of that opportunity. So
I love that you pointed that out. There was a time about 20 years ago, I was active in the church at this time, and I got tired of people saying, "How you doing? How you doing?" And you know, people ask that in the hallway as they're walking past you, and they never even stop to get the answer. So I started being very honest with my ward members, and I'm like, I am not okay today. And sometimes they still were walking by, and I already knew
and they don't even know what they do with that.
I already knew that they weren't going to stop. It's not like I was taking it personal, but I really actually, the whole point of me doing this exercise is I really wanted to end this social grace of putting on a fake smile. I want it to be authentic.
Right.
And so I started to choose that. And I've made a lot of people uncomfortable in my life and in that ward in particular, but I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it because I didn't want to participate in that any longer.
So worst case scenario, you help them maybe take a little bit deeper dive into themselves to say, oh, maybe I should have at least stutter stepped and listened to some of what she had to say. But good for you for pulling that out and for recognizing that and to be able to be authentic. And that's really what that first retreat was about. It had a lot of authenticity conversations and that kind of stuff. So each one has a different theme. This one in April will be about storytelling, actually, because I love the art of storytelling. And so the opportunity to find the power of words. We use words a lot, and we don't always. Do you know what the definition of silly is? Like, we say that all the time. We say, I turned off my phone, so I can't actually tell you. But the definition of silly is it's so derogatory and demeaning. It is like you're
having or showing a lack of common sense or judgment, absurd and foolish.
Right. And we say to our kids or to ourselves,
silly.
"Oh, you're so silly," or "I did this silly thing."
Like you're being funny, or that's so cute.
So
we don't actually use words in context.
So
that's
learning
really
the power of words and figuring out what that looks like. There's a Japanese doctor,
Brown's book. It's the book, but it's really all about definitions. And she explains the actual meaning of words that we commonly use, but we actually incorrectly use them.
Right. We have a lot of those.
So sometimes we'll say things like, I'm jealous, but actually we're not jealous. Jealousy is not like, oh, I really want that thing too. That's envious.
Envious, yeah.
So, yeah, it's those little kind of semantics, but actually words have energy and meaning, and we put that out into the world.
And that's what we're going to draw to ourselves, right? Yep. Whether we want to or not, those words are going to bring to us. There's a Japanese doctor, Emoto, which I love that he's Emoto because, you know, that's the whole emotion and emotive. But he does a thing with water. And he speaks words into water.
Yes.
Or he writes you've seen that?
Yes.
So we're going to talk a little bit about that this weekend and help people understand that they really bring in what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And then, or help these women understand that. So then we go from some affirmations, a little storytelling, a little content creation to my favorite, which is LifeSync, which is, I really wish I had a different name. And now that I have a bigger audience, I'm going to say if anybody can figure out a better name for this, I'll give you $100.
Oh, $100 is on the line. Explain to me what you want to convey with LifeSync. I'm in it.
LifeSync is a holistic approach to life management. It's a tool I've developed that you sit in a daily energy assessment. My sister does it after her second cup of coffee. I have another person who's using this. She does it after she meditates. I've found my best energy assessment is when I'm in the shower and I'm starting to get all the kinks out. And I'm like, okay, how am I feeling socially? How am I feeling mentally? How am I feeling physically? How am I feeling intellectually? And how am I feeling spiritually? And how does that relate to what I've got to do today? To the urgent firefighting kinds of things, as well as the prioritizing the things that I need to do as far as my goals are concerned and what I want to achieve that brings the most significance into my life. And then how can I do that? How can I accomplish all of those things that I need to do with the resources that I have? And by resources, I'm talking about friends and family, your next door neighbor's sister, your next door neighbor, whomever it is that you know that you have talked through this process with and said, you know, I really need a backup for picking up my children from their sporting events. If I were to call you, would you be willing to pick up my kids, take them home, give them a snack, let them hang at your house for an hour because I need to take care of XYZ so that I can have this, I can be in two places at once. And they say, yeah, I can do that. That fits in my schedule and that fits with what I have. And yes, I can show up for you that way. And so with your daily assessment, you've got some little things that you'll write down as far as your goals and your priorities. You have celebrations, things that I want you to look at celebrating, and reflections of yesterday, what you want to bring forward, what you need to let go of, how you need to reassess, and what you need to do that way. So it's really an opportunity to put your cell phone next to with all of your things to do and all of your significant, important, urgent things next to a planner that lets you look at what you really want to accomplish on an overall scheme so that you don't get caught in the weeds. So LifeSync is that holistic approach to that kind of a thing. And that was really a long thing, so hopefully that was okay.
No, I love that a lot. I actually created a journal years ago, and I call it the Conscious Living Journal, and that is part of my thing. And I actually have a scale for the social, mental, physical, that side of 0 to 10. And then you can notate like what is causing the imbalance here.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
It's just an awareness scale.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mine only goes to 4 because I don't think we should get to scapegoat with a 3, so it doesn't go to 5. And just where you are, because we can't just be half. We can't be in the middle.
Because that
We got to
would just
choose.
be fine.
We got to choose. There you go.
Yeah.
It's fine. I'm fine. I'm a 3.
We'd be fine in the middle. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm loving all of this. I'm clearly not enrolled for your class this weekend because it's this weekend. Where do you host these? And what if someone can't make it to a planned retreat? Do you still do some one-on-one or small group consulting or coaching? Okay, tell us a little more about that and where do we learn? I know
Absolutely.
the website still, but walk me through that.
So if the retreats are held across the Wasatch Front, they'll go from, we have one planned down in Hurricane, so that's a little outside of that. We're going to go down and do, that one is in October.
Are you overnight? Is it all day, one day,
It's all
several
day.
days?
It's a Thursday night, all day Friday, and Saturday.
Oh, it's a couple days.
Saturday until about 4 or 5 o'clock.
Okay.
The one down in Hurricane will probably add a little bit more time. But there's all kinds of things. We're doing massages, we're doing sound baths, we're doing a nature walk, all different kinds of things in addition to the learning that comes along with it. So it's the holistic approach. It's bringing in all of the self-care.
It's not just a seminar for a
like
few hours where you're just dumping all this information on me that I have to then go home and be overwhelmed by.
Well, and then you go home and you forget it after about 3 days. So that's also where the LifeSync comes in, because it's a tool that they're going to take with them, a journal that they'll take with them, and they'll have mapped out the next 6 months. Now, in detail, absolutely not.
Sure,
But
right.
at least they'll have seen the
concept,
tools,
right.
because that's what we've done for 3 days. Well, they'll see the tools. They'll be able to start trying to use them. Additionally, I will have some workshops that are single day kind of things. I do a Wisdom Wednesday every Wednesday morning. I was going to say Thursday just to tease you. Every Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock that you click on a Zoom link and get a topic. And we just talk about it for 20 minutes and then we have a 10-minute question and answer. So it's not anything that is designed to do anything except trigger a couple things that I'll jot this note down and come back to it, or go click on the record of the video or something like that. I do one-on-one coaching as well as consulting. If someone wants to do an audit of their business, we do a strategic audit so they can learn a little bit more about how their alignment looks from an outside perspective instead of being in the middle of those trenches. And so far that's where I am. But, this thing has taken a little bit of a life of its own, and I'm hoping that as it continues to grow, as Novel continues to grow, and I continue to grow and see what the needs are out there for women especially. I've also started working with some nonprofits. I like how that feels. I like the creatives. I find myself pulling further away from my manufacturing background, which is
this is a 180 from where you were.
Which is and it's
good for you.
Well, I'm not sure yet whether it's good for me. We'll see how that goes in the next 6 months, but it certainly is filling and fulfilling to what my soul needs.
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful. I love that you're doing a lot of the same things that I'm passionate about.
We have
Listen,
cross paths at some point.
We should do. Could we do this? I don't know if we could do this, but we should do a Relentlessly Resilient retreat. And we could advertise it to listeners.
Oh, that would be
And
awesome.
you can present and coach, and you can present, and I can be like, "Hi, I'm Jennie. I'm here because I'm part of the party." But the two of you could do. I can keynote. I'll MC. I can MC.
Yeah.
But think how fun that would be if we put
really
something
great.
together
I would love it.
and just to listeners who maybe have heard story after story after story and still are looking for, where am I in my story, and what am I working on, or what could I be working on? So much of what you just shared is resonating in my brain because I'm 44 years old and for the first time in my life looking at career options. Not that I've never had opportunities before, but I chose, I worked in high school, I worked in college, I also served a mission for the LDS Church. I came home and was teaching, been a teacher since the day I was born in my heart. And then after I had my children, I very adamantly wanted to stay home and be home with them. My husband supported that, and really, I don't know that he would have ever approved of me having a job. Like, there's some traditional gender roles in our married life, but now I'm looking at opportunities, and I don't know how to make a business plan. I don't know really how to make a 1-year, 3-year, 5-year plan around earning money or building a brand or things like that. I mean, I have a beautiful spreadsheet from years ago where I had the 1 year, 3 year, 20-year plan that showed the ages of my children, when they'd graduate, who would be a teenager, when Brent would deploy, when election cycles would be. Like, I had all of that planned, but my future path was tied to his career path, and I was happy with that. And it's been unsettling and unexpected, to say the least, to now have to choose a path. There was something kind of easy to say, okay, honey, you go kill all the dragons and tell me where the next job is. And if we move, it's because of your job and not mine. But so much of what you've shared just resonates with me, where I maybe 25 years ago had some of these thoughts, but here I am having them again. Like, what am I doing? Where do I want to go? Who do I want to be? Who can I be? What can I do? And to have some coaching and guidance through that, rather than I just trip over myself every day because I want to do and be all things to all people. And that's not a very good business plan.
Well, you kind of run a lot. So you're doing a lot of things, Jennie. And sometimes we have to just kind of download that. But I am not one to talk about that, since my oldest son will tell you I am the busiest unemployed person you ever met.
Right.
And somebody called me out on that the other day. I was telling them that. They're like, well, aren't you a coach? I'm like, oh, yeah, I do get paid for that. But that's kind of like a hobby.
It's like nominal,
coach.
right?
That's like,
it's not a full-time 9 to 5.
Well, I do get paid for it, but I value the connection and the excitement I see when people have their aha moments.
Not checking the clock. Yeah.
To me, that is not work. So I forgot that I have a job technically.
But you are the busiest
unemployed. Isn't that what we really hope for, though?
Yeah.
Right.
That we don't realize we're working while we're doing it. I think that's the goal.
I love that you said it's filling and fulfilling.
And I think that
we have this podcast. You have your foundation. That foundation takes a lot of your energy
I work
and time.
all of the time. Let me correct myself. This is the first time in my life that I'm looking at a trajectory that might bring with it financial compensation.
Right.
And that's a very new dynamic for me, because you talk about the culture here in Utah, and I mentioned stay-at-home mom. I've done a lot of PTA work. That's for free. I've done a lot of
those are all very highly transferable skills,
yes,
however.
very transferable skills that I'm now looking at how can I transfer them, because otherwise I say I haven't had a job in a lot of years. That doesn't mean I don't work.
Right.
And I'm not contributing
and
to
you keynote speak
society.
And you are getting paid for that now, which
yes,
seems to be
very occasionally I get paid. I speak a million times for each time I get paid. I would like to switch that balance a little bit more.
Yeah.
But that isn't something I would have thought a few years ago. In fact, I think when I first started speaking, the immediate aftermath of Brent's death, I think if someone would have offered me money, I would have almost been offended.
Right.
Because it would have felt like blood money.
Right.
Like you're trying to buy my emotion or buy my tragedy. Now I've just realized there's an entire industry built around storytelling and inspirational messaging. And I was a school teacher where my first paycheck for that full year was, $2,200 a month. And I was happy with it because I wasn't in it for the money.
Right.
But I'm now raising a large number of children who cost a lot of dollars to raise. And anyway, it's a paradigm shift. So I'm just saying, my point being, what you're sharing about this holistic approach, I'm sure it resonates with more women than just me. I think regardless of our age and stage of life, we could all benefit from taking that step back, digging a little deeper rather than just running through the motions. Because it's easy to be fine and run through the motions. Right. We do it all the time.
We do it all the time.
It's in the water, like you said.
It is.
I love that you had this thing that happened, this upset.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle. I appreciate it.
She loves that you got, how did you say it dropped on your
my butt?
I do love it, actually. And I'll tell you why I love it. I love it because there are moments in our lives, in everybody's life, that something happens. And Jennie, like you were in this very cultural, it wasn't just that you had a very traditional male-female role.
Sure.
You were in a very traditional religious home, and that's the husband provides
and
community
community
stays home.
and culture and
So that is big here in Utah. And I was much the same. However, I did not get dropped on my butt, but my husband and I were going through some challenges, and I thought to myself, and he was, let me not forget this part. It wasn't that we were just going through challenge. My husband was race car driving. And I'm like, what is going to happen if he dies? And I have to take care of these 4 children because I am not working. And so I always had this like inside pressure of feeling like I have got to figure out how to turn these skills of these things that I'm passionate about, that I love doing, into some ability to make some money. Because if something happens to him, I don't want my children's entire lives to be turned upside down. And I ended up being able to do that. And ironically, that was a good thing. But then when he died, the thing no one tells you about is typically widows, women, widows at least, will change careers completely after they lose their spouse. And I'm experiencing that as well. I'm like, I don't want to work in politics. I don't want a big job of stress. I don't want to travel outside for stretches of long periods of time, right? And so that's why I thought, well, I have all this skill, all this experience. Where could I take it? And that's why I went through the coaching program that I went through and decided to become a resilience and awareness coach, because there is such a great need for women. And I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
And there's room for all of us, right? Like there's room for all of it. There is a huge need out here. And I love that you're actually doing event style.
Thank you. I really like it too. And one thing I wanted to piggyback on what you said is that was one of the things that I was, as I redefined this, Jennie, that's really truly one of the things I had to look at, is I was so, let me just say the last 3 years of my tenure at my original manufacturing business was hell. And I sweated every single payroll. Mm-hmm. The payrolls were $100,000.
Oh, my
and they
word.
came every 2 weeks.
Ugh.
And I sweated every payroll. I had 70 pairs of eyes plus all their little kids.
I think I would have no hair from
right.
pulling
Well,
just
it's
the
great.
stress,
It was
the
yeah.
stress.
heartburn.
But it was tough and living, and I truly lived for that dollar and pushing and figuring out how to try and make that happen. And that was one of the things I said to myself, I am not doing this. When I was unceremoniously dumped on my butt, I had to reassess this. And I'm like, I am not working for that dang dollar again. Mm-hmm. I want to work for something that I love and that fills me. So the reason I say this to you, Jennie, is I think that as you look at what that looks like, monetizing your gifts and talents isn't yucky. It's not slimy. It isn't a bad thing. It is actually the most fulfilling thing that I've done. And finding a way to be able to do that, find the right support system, find the right coach, get what you want as far as that. And if you're a spreadsheet queen already, congratulations. That will help a lot.
I love
but
all the spreadsheets.
I know, isn't it fun? But, I think that if you give that gift to somebody, if they learn how to do that, if they, they say teach a man to fish, whatever. If you teach a woman to understand that she can monetize her gifts and talents and to be able to figure out a way to make that work for her and her family, we change the world.
Absolutely. And, I think the challenge for us, regardless of the community that you're in, just being an American woman in any state that you're in, the reality is that there are so many messages in media, in marketing, in all kinds of things that really indicate that women are not valuable. And so we have the subconscious belief that what we are is not valuable or not valuable enough or aren't as valuable as a man's contribution in this world. And none of those things are true.
Nope.
They're not true at all. And of course, we have a lot of great women that we can see that have done amazing things with their lives. But I think that underlying message is actually there culturally. And I think that that's the little piece that sometimes women have to get to say, I do bring value. And to really understand that and believe that I have a value.
Well, I think that's a little bit of the fine culture too, isn't it? Right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine that I'm not. I'm fine that I'm not winning all of this. I'm fine that I'm not earning as much because I don't need to, because I have, my husband's income or whatever. But I don't necessarily think it's about any of that. And I don't think it's about keeping score. I think it's about being your best you. It's finding your bliss. It's living in your bliss. It's bringing that magnificence and those innate gifts and talents to the forefront and celebrating those and celebrating other women who celebrate them and finding ways to continue to grow and to let go of all of that junk that we take with us.
Yeah.
So anyway.
It is interesting. I had a job once where I asked for a raise and I was told, well, this person is in that same role as you. In fact, the other 3 people in that same role of you are men and they have families to provide for. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting. I often look back and think about that today. Like, oh, so if my husband had died earlier, would I then have been given
Merited higher pay?
Merited that higher pay? You know, it's just those kind of little interesting.
We got to change them. One thought, one experience at a time.
Absolutely. Well, I have to say, Heather, I'm really glad that you came in and that we crossed paths.
Me too. I am excited. And let's get that on the calendar.
Yeah.
I think it'd be so fun.
Yeah. No, I think that we should definitely. Looks like we're putting together a Relentlessly Resilient retreat.
Oh, it's RRR.
Yeah.
And there will be T-shirts.
Yeah.
I mean, right.
We've got to get those merch out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We will just create
She
it.
is
And those
not
that want to come
taking
will
If
come.
the three of us are the
temperature.
only ones who show
We
up,
will
then
have
we
a
are going
good
to have a
time.
good four of us.
We've got our
Then we
producer,
will have a good
Kellyanne.
time.
And I want to give a special shout out today. Kellyanne Halverson, our producer here, is a neighbor with Heather Higgins. And she's the reason that Heather,
Yeah, she
you're
made
in
this
here
great connection.
together.
Yep, absolutely.
And you're also a listener of the podcast, so that's
And
really
that too.
exciting.
I have really enjoyed it. I am so grateful that you are putting this vibe out there, that you're giving people tools and helping them find this. I absolutely love it. And I know I've talked a lot about women, but I think men need it too. So I'm open to whomever wants to listen to your
we
podcast,
actually
bring it
have
on.
more.
Agreed.
The last time I checked, anyway, we have more male listeners than we do women, which I find to be interesting.
That
I
is
find
awesome.
that to be very interesting
So,
as well.
and that's the other sad fact, right?
Right.
Our men are sensitive; they're caring,
And we're almost surprised by that they would listen. Or
and we
something.
shouldn't be surprised because they have hearts and they hurt and they have traumas and they go through hard things and they need
And they have
support
great
too.
tools to share as well.
They have great
Absolutely.
tools,
And
here's
maybe
the
aren't
other
as
thing.
culturally
They also
offering
need
those tools.
support, and often we don't realize that our men need
That's
more
very true.
support because oftentimes when it comes to dealing with the hard, we expect them to soldier up
Man
and
up.
armor up.
We even say it,
and-
man up. When we all know that
supporting our
the real synergy is found when men and women can work together.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay, what an
Absolutely.
amazing episode with good
So
things
good.
to come. We hope you'll join us on the Relentlessly Resilient Retreat. Thank you to Kellyanne Halverson, our producer. Thank you to Minky, our sponsor, for all just the love and comfort embodied in a blanket. And thanks to KSL Studios for letting us record another episode today. If you're listening and you like what you heard, please go find us on your favorite podcast platform and give us a like, a rating, and a review. And if you're listening and have a story to share, which you do if you're listening, reach out to us. We would love to share it here and learn and grow together. You can find us on social media, Facebook and Instagram at Relentlessly Resilient or Relentlessly Resilient Podcast. Find the little message us button and it will take you to a calendar link with Michelle where you can have a phone call to see what story you might share and the tools you can help the rest of us learn. We'd love to hear from you.
And remember, whatever you do today, remember to be kind. You have no idea the struggles others are dealing with in their lives. Have a great day.